Hello everybody, thank you for coming to Bernina Club today. Sorry I couldn't be here this time, but Teresa's doing a good filming for us and we'll watch it this way. Today we're doing the Zip It bag there are a bunch of little project type bags. There's one that's called the coin, the wallet, and the gadget. There's two other sizes. One's called the project, and I have slipped me what the other one is called. The book one. So it must be kind of size of like a book. They're all made out of the mesh fabric, which is the vinyl. Is it vinyl? I think. But it's all used with the screening and everything that you use, so they'd be good for the beach, good for kids things, so they can handle water, anything like that. They're real simple to make. They've just got your side seams on the as far as the seam, and they're decorated. I picked a Mickey theme just because we got the cute Mickey fabrics in. You can detail them as much as you wanted. She will do in the PowerPoint some embroidery techniques that she did. So that's an option you could do, so it's kind of one of those things where you play with different techniques. I think she suggests one thing about looking in the feature books and getting different techniques. So some of these are just piping and then just regular sewing and then with the zippers. Some things I set out here, if you are doing the piping, I just use the Susie's ready to sew piping, and it's the petite piping that I used. She mentioned having the rulers. These are good to cut off your seam allowances with the piping grooves. They've got the groove in the bottom of them. We've used them before for different things, but you can set your piping in there, and then you would be able to, like that right there, you'd be able to cut off a seam allowance. For this one would be like a 1/4 inch seam. So those are good to use with your, if you're doing a lot with piping, to get the right seam allowance. Some of the bands, especially like this one and this size here, I used the gadget or bias gadgets that we've always used so well to run the fabric through and press it down. That give you a good size, and so I just kind of cut the strips to that size. And then the Dritz Easy Hammer works well for just you being able to fold your strip over and get a clean finish when you're ironing and stuff, to get your clean finish edge. So I'm going to demonstrate a few things. Eventually we'll get a bag completed. So I'm going to, let's see, the first thing on this is the band for, I'm making this one will go on the project size, which is the biggest one, which I think would be good for us to carry around our projects in. And with it, as far as when you're doing the petite piping, I like to use the foot number 23, and with it, it's got the groove on the bottom here that lets the piping will fit right in the, sorry, I haven't done my video practice. The piping will fit right in that groove, which would be good as far as you being able to stay on course with it. It's the one I like to use most of the time. So, I did not cut off any of the seam allowance on my piping just because it's all going to be turned under. You do need to move your needle position over, kind of just where it's hitting on that previous stitched line. And I've just got the edge of it up against the edge of my fabric. With that foot, it just kind of stays in the groove, so it makes it easy to follow. Some of your pin tucking feet work good for this. If you're using a bigger piping, usually number 12 works good for that, which is the bulky overlock foot. So, use my thread cutter that I forget to use sometimes. So now with that is just sewn onto the edge, and then you would take it and iron it down on the ironing board to where it would look like this size. Okay, then after you did that, you cut all the measurements to cut all the bags are in the handout. So this one is the big one I said. I found I liked the yellow color chalk. Worked well with this since it was being where it's dark. This ruler here is just the one, it tells you to mark down 1 inch from the top. So that one's just being 1 inch, so I thought it worked well. And just take it across the top and make you a mark. This is going to be your guideline for your band. On some of the bigger bags, you could you'd have a lot more room to where you could place it at different places if you wanted to. With this one, that pretty much does it well because it pretty much hit it at the bottom since it's such a tiny size. And I used, I still used the 23 for this when I was doing the piping, just because I figured it helped with placing it. And just kind of put the top of that at the top of the piping edge against your edge that you drew. Put in a couple of pins here. And now I'm moving the needle position over to the left side to kind of do a stitch in the ditch kind of. I do have the yellow thread on here, so if I happen to get over on the red, I think it's okay. I did on some of these when it just holding it still, especially when you got higher to the bigger bands, I did spray on the back side of the fabric, not on the mesh, because of course it would just spray through on it, but I sprayed on the fabric so then it would stick to the mesh a little bit easier than the pins. Pins are, they just want to slide around on you some. So now with this, the one side's sewn down, and then with this I would turn, of course this would have been pressed already, and then I would sew it up, and then we'll just sew the same side, the other side down the same way. So, but we will switch to one here that I already have where both sides are sewn down, and then at that point you can trim off your excess sticking out. The bands can be made any size. On the pattern it kind of tells you a size. It says, you know, for which bag it'll say like from a 1 to 3 inches or something. So there's not a rule as far as how big your band is. It can be whatever you would like it to be. And I should have got a pair of big scissors, but that's okay. Okay. So now we're going to put the zipper on, and something with the zipper, at first you're not using a zipper foot like you would think. You want to use your foot number 37 or any of your 1/4 inch seam feet, and that's, you'll see why in just a moment. I am going to change threads real quick, just to go back to black. And that just kind of matches up everything better. And you do want to remember to move your needle position over, because I had on had moved it, and with your 37 you'll break your needle. So now you kind of want to put your zipper, of course zippers that are longer than your top is best. This is I think the top of this bag is 18 inches and this zipper is 22, so that's a good difference, because that way you don't have to worry so much about getting everything positioned just right. I unzipped it and let some hang off both edges. And then when you're putting it in, of course, you put the wrong side of the zipper down on top of the right side. And here's where it's kind of different of doing normal zippers. You're going to use the inside of your foot right here. That would be like your 1/8 of an inch seam instead of your 1/4 inch that you usually use this foot for. And you're going to, I need to point at that again. You're going to line up the edge of your fabric right there with this 1/8 inch. So you're just kind of sewing right on the edge. That's so when we get done we can flip it around and then kind of top stitch that edge down. So that's why we use 37 instead of like a normal zipper foot. It would be a little bit harder to guide. To zip it back closed. So if you look, we've got our zipper attached on. We will like kind of turn this under in a minute and top stitch that down, but we won't do that right now. Okay, so now you're going to take the bottom side of your piece of mesh and you're going to bring it up to meet the other side of the zipper like that, and then we're going to flip it over and we're going to do the same sewing again. And the zipper is zipped at this point. I'm going to unzip it kind of like about halfway. That way it just kind of keeps it lined up, but then it's not completely closed. But if it was completely closed, you'd still be able to get into it. It's not one of those bags, once we do this, we've closed it up and then we can't get it open. So okay, so here again doing the same sew down this side with the eighth inch kind of seam right along the edge of the mesh and the zipper, just lining them up as you go. Some of these may have come out kind of looking somewhat crooked on the top side, which is okay. Remember, they're just little bags. It's all good. Some of these long threads out of the way. So now we've got it all, the zipper all done. I'm going to undo it, and this is when we would fold the zipper tape up and fold it over. And if you look on the back, the mesh is just kind of right there, but we're going to do a top stitching. And we're going to use that kind of 1/8 inch mark again. And that way it kind of catches the mesh. It kind of catches the mesh, so then it doesn't have to, it won't You shouldn't have problems getting it caught